Hi, I'm Alessio Cavatore. I've written a few games, particularly war games for Games Workshop and other companies, Mantic Games, Warlord Games, and many other companies through the years. Today we're going to talk about bolt action specifically, and specifically what is bolt action and how it came to be, and where does it sit as a war game. So bolt action was created around 2010. And by Warlord Games, they acquired a range of miniatures called Bolt Action, but then they wanted a set of rules to go with it. And I had just left Games Workshop, and basically they asked me whether I could write this for them. It was funny because Rick Priestley, also part of Warlord Games, said, "Oh no, Alessio, I need you to write it because if I write it, it would be too friendly. It would be too nice. So we need somebody who's less nice to write this." The idea being that it was a part of the brief was they wanted a game that was could be used for competitive gaming, and I kind of like
history in that, haven't you?
Yes, I like tournaments. I started as a tournament player, and though now that I'm older, I've lost the edge. I'm certainly more relaxed. My back hurts, and I just can't do competitive wargaming properly. But I still enjoy going to tournaments and getting absolutely massacred by the players. But so basically, because I like that kind of gaming, I was given the task to write Bolt Action, and the Bolt Action has a couple of mechanics which have become kind of synonyms with it, and people, keep saying, even though we are at the third edition now, from 2010 to 2025, so that's 15 years in, 3 editions in. The third edition just came out, so it's a fairly long-lasting game, because if you think 3 editions in 15 years is not a lot. A lot of games go through a lot more editions in that space of time. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the game has been well received from the start, and I'm glad to say the third edition is, at the moment, since release, like last year, the end of last year, is a roaring success. It's been doing really well, which I was worried about, because you kind of, with second edition doing well, and you think, ooh, there's a risk here to kill the golden goose, and you're gonna go, oh God, what do we do now? And so there's a nervousness. But not third edition. Say in terms of sales, which is the best way to judge it, is doing really well, and the feedback is overall positive, which again is a rarity these days. I always fear the online community and the judgment, but no, it's been mostly not 100% of course, but like 95% of the feedback is positive, which is fantastic. Oh, it's far better than we expected. I always fear, oh my God, they're going to hate it, oh my God. But no, actually it was good, it was great. What is Bolt Action? Bolt Action is a 25-30 mil scale war game. The experience we were looking for from 2010 to now, so from the third to the third edition, Bolt Action is basically you're supposed to collect an army of World War II, a force from World War II, with 20, 30, 40 models, infantry models, in 5-6 units, maybe a couple of artillery pieces, and a few vehicles. You could go 2, 3, 4, 5 different type of vehicles, from light armored cars to heavy tanks, a mix. So it's supposed to last, as a 2-player game, it's supposed to last a couple of hours, but of course you can play a much smaller amount of troops or bigger amount of troops and make the game last longer. But the average thing we look is a couple of hours of a game with about 12, 15 units per side. And it's, the reputation is a very simple game in terms of rules. It is not uber complicated. And it has, like I was saying, has 2 mechanics. One particularly that is become kind of the byword for this, which is the bag of ordered dice. So you have a bag that includes 1 dice for each of your units. So if you have 12 units, you will have 12 dice. They all look the same, and the opponent will have, say, for example, 15 units and 15 dice. We all put these dice into a bag, and then we start turn 1, and we draw dice. Randomly, without looking, we draw one of the dice. And when the dice comes out, if it's one of my dice, I get to put it on one of my units and give it an order. That's why they're called an order dice, and activate the unit. If it's one of your dice, then you do that. And we keep drawing from the bag until every unit has received an order and is activated, and that concludes the turn. If the unit is destroyed, you remove the dice from the bag. So it's random. It's definitely, there's a randomness to it, but there is a balanced randomness to it, because effectively, even if I am lucky at the start of the turn and draw a lot of dice, then you know that by the end that you will have a good moment where you will draw a lot of dice. Eventually, you will draw the right amount of dice. And it represents quite well the ebb and flow of war, the fog of war, not knowing exactly what's happening. From a player's point of view, it's both interesting, deciding what to activate,
Sure.
and entertaining, because sometimes when there's two things which are very obviously, this tank is, you can imagine the turret traversing towards a target, and the other tank is frantically reloading the gun after taking a shot and missing or just bouncing off the armor, and so they're preparing to fire again, and your tank is traversing to try to get fired back, and that moment of which one is gonna fire first is very exciting. Or it could be a sniper trying to track an officer that is running from cover to cover, and again it's like, will I manage to get into cover before the guy shoots me? So there's some exciting moments, and from a strategy point of view, the which unit to activate is actually an interesting choice, because it's partly is what has activated on the other side. Is like that tank, that unit of infantry is a really big threat, but this turn they have already activated.
You don't need to worry about
so
it again. Yeah.
maybe I'm more worried about this other thing, which is not quite as powerful but has not activated yet this turn. So which one is, do I fire at the really serious threat, because in the next turn then I would have fired it, or will I fire at this thing that is will hurt me this turn? So there's an urgency versus importance thing that you think every time you decide what to do, what to activate. The other thing is the other mechanic, the second biggest mechanic, which is the pin marker. So every time a unit takes fire, whether they take casualty or damage or not, if they are hit, then even if the cover they are in saves them from the thing, or they don't take effectively any damage. But if they're hit by fire, then they take a pin marker.
Yeah.
And the more they get hit by different units, the more they will have pin markers on. And the more they have pin markers on, the less likely they are to activate. When you order them to do something, you give them an order, so fire, move, there's a random chance based on their leadership, their morale value, minus the number of pins they have. So basically how good a troop they are and how much they're being fired on. And so there's a chance they don't obey to you and they just go down. Just go down, take cover, do nothing that turn. So again, when you're choosing which of your units to activate, you have this unit has activated, this unit hasn't activated, this unit is very powerful and threatening this unit that I care about, but also that unit has a couple of pin markers on it. So that unit, what are the chances it activates? These many chances roughly is okay. While that unit, though maybe it's not as good as that, but has no pin markers on it, so it's more likely.
Yeah, there's a few variables then to take into account.
So it's urgency, likelihood of activation, and again through simple mechanics. So overall, I think that I enjoy playing bolt action. I think that's the key point, and I guess that's why I'm still involved in third edition. Is I really enjoy playing the game. Yeah. I find it exciting, entertaining, relatively fast. Also, I like to play with not too many units because I like to take my time thinking about things.
Cool.
So you can see players that enjoy bigger games with more dice, but then these players normally are very good at playing quick. Just kind of there's because they know the game so well,
sure.
which is incredible when I got to play these people, and they they know the game so much better than me in terms of the tactics of it. They're just so much better than me at that. And but well, actually, I'm slower. I tend to think about things possibly, which why I like a lower number of dice in a smaller amount of smaller games, basically. Yeah. But so 3 editions later, 15 years later, bolt action is still going really well. We are writing now all the army books because basically we've done the rule book. And the rulebook includes 5 of the main forces of World War II. So you got armies of the US, armies of Germany, armies of Imperial Japan, Soviet Union, and Great Britain. So you have those 5 armies in the rulebook, like a starter army list. But then now we are slowly releasing, actually not slowly, quite quickly, releasing all the armies of Germany, the book, which includes more units, which includes more rules. So it kind of goes more in depth into what you could feel.
Things like Romanians and that whatnot in, I suppose.
Yeah, there's the 5 main ones that I mentioned, but then you would have armies of Italy, armies of France. So you kind of have and some of the nations that weren't as big are maybe compiled into a single book, which, for example, forces of the Axis, which indeed includes Romanians, Hungarians, Finns. So several units combined together, several forces combined together. In the same book, just because indeed, but it's a choice. You could have a lot of smaller books or one book that collates some of them, and again, is a commercial decision there. But yeah, so now we are going pretty much every quarter. Since the release of the rule book, we are releasing one new book, which means it's a frantic period. So much work to do all these things. So it's a tight schedule, but it's. Luckily, we're using existing material from previous editions. Obviously, we're just remastering it and putting it together and adapting to the 3rd edition, adding some stuff, removing some stuff, so modifying it. But we are not starting from scratch. Otherwise, it would be impossible to do a book every 3 months. It wouldn't be feasible, because it would take probably a year if you have to start from scratch. But because it's existing material adapted to 3rd edition, then we can do 3 a month. Still a lot of work.
Yeah. What was when I was with John, he mentioned that your World War II knowledge coming into Bolt Action was very limited, and now obviously you're quite adept. Like, can you talk about the experience of researching into World War II and kind of how that's helped shape?
Yes, it was very funny actually when I'm sure John was referring to the first meeting we had with Osprey Games, where I get to the meeting and we're talking to this big staff in the brass of Osprey, and as I introduce myself, I'm an experienced game designer. I've written Warhammer 40K and this and that. So I say I'm an experienced game designer. I'm not an expert on World War II. Blah, blah. And you can see the faces of the people going, "What?" And John going, "It's not the right thing to say." I was like, oh, am I being too honest here? Which was, so basically, like you say, my knowledge of World War II was mostly from cinema. I did, I did luckily do some research on some particular sectors of World War II, like the North African sector, because I had relatives, my granddad, my granduncle were there and fought in World War II there, and therefore, through their accounts, the stories they told me, that sector was actually interesting. I then played war games in that sector, like Africa Corps, so I knew quite a lot about that sector, but not so much about other sectors, to be honest. But through 15 years of going through books and checking and editing, and because you go through all of this information, then of course you're reading it and you're taking it in. And so my detailed knowledge of World War II got a lot more, now I can tell apart all the models, well, not all, a lot of models of tanks and guns and unit types, and so certainly interacting every day for 15 years. Gosh, 15 years. With John, with Paul Sawyer, with Rick Priestley, with all the people that work for Warlord, and all the authors that did all these different books for the years, because we did campaign books, theater books, as well as the army books. So yes, my knowledge of World War II has increased. Not incredibly in 15 years, of course. Yes. So basically Bolt Action is a simple action-driven World War II game, cinematic in nature, so is not hyper detailed, but it's tactical and exciting, I think. And if you think you might like that kind of experience, which is very different from many other games out there, I encourage you to come and try it and see if it works for you. So thank you for listening.